Let me ask you a question. If nobody claps, would you still do the work? If nobody reposted you, gave you praise, tagged you, or just left a little fire emoji up on your post, what would you do? Will what you do still feel worth pursuing? What if I told you that there's actually a version of you that was already given a purpose that'll impact the lives of hundreds, thousands, or potentially even millions of people? If that's something that you desire, then I want to invite you to watch the fullness of this episode because I'll be breaking down what's been keeping you inconsistent in 2025, as well as how to operate in your God given identity that will make showing up consistently in 2026 feel effortless. The reason why you aren't seeing the results from your business or from your work is because a lot of you want to have that spotlight growth without doing the root work. We've all tried to measure our value or measure our worth based on how other people respond. If I didn't post about it, then it didn't happen. That's an addiction to attention. That's an addiction to validation. God didn't create you to move like somebody who needs validation or needs confirmation every 5 minutes. You've been doing flips for people who don't even know what they want for themselves, all to keep strangers impressed. They don't even know you. There's work that has to be done in the dark. What you say and what you believe about yourself are the only things that matter in order for you to fulfill this assignment that you were created for. A lot of people swear that they don't care what other people think about them. But if we're being honest with ourselves, in actuality, people want an audience. People want fans. People want people to acknowledge them. People want people to validate them. Ultimately, people want other people to like them. And if that sounds like you, I'm not trying to diminish you in any kind of way. However, there is a truth behind all of this that you probably don't want to admit. And that truth is that you keep chasing validation, not because you care about what other people think about you, but you just don't feel like you're valuable enough without any kind of applause. It's kind of like you're trying to boost yourself up by how other people respond. But if I'm being honest, we've all been there. We've all done this little dance with validation here and there. We've all tried to measure our value or measure our worth based on how other people respond. But if you allow me to continue to be honest with you for a second, your mood shouldn't rely on Instagram. Your value shouldn't be affected because a post didn't perform the way that you thought it would. Your world shouldn't fall apart just because somebody didn't notice you today. And unfortunately, if it does, I hate to break it to you, but that's an addiction. That's an addiction to attention. That's an addiction to validation. And what we've all started to see over and over, especially in this day and age of social media, is that validation is a drug. And just like a drug, it's fast, it's loud. But for some reason, what people seem to not be able to understand or not be able to realize is that it's also temporary. It's temporary like that dopamine hit that you keep having to chase. It's temporary like that high that only lasts for a moment. And I want to give you guys some examples because I need you to also be able to envision this in order to see it and not just hearing it in order to make this personal to you. So let's just say we have an example of a photographer. And a photographer who changes their style depending on what's going viral on social media, what's going viral on Instagram. One month their style is moody, the next month their style is polished and sharp, the next month their style is airy, whatever that means. And the problem here is that while some people may be able to say that they're just finding their style, there's also everybody else's identity on their page instead of their own. They keep having to emulate and try new things and they keep going from one thing to the next and they never really develop a style of their own. And as a result of this, their bookings stay inconsistent because their clients or their potential clients can't seem to be able to trust or be able to predict what version of this photographer that they'll get next. They don't know which version is going to show up for their shoot. They don't know what type of edits they'll get for their shoot. And while, yes, you can always say that, well, the clients can always just ask, well, I want this type of style, I want this type of style. That's also assuming that the client knows what they want for real. It's kind of hard to get with somebody who is always changing with the tide, moving with the wind, going with the flow, or just trying to do what's viral and chasing trends. But let me give you another example because the photographer is pretty niche. You've probably heard or you probably experienced, if I didn't post about it, then it didn't happen. And see, the problem with this one, and I know about this one personally, is that every task that you do becomes content. And you feel if you don't post about it, then it didn't count. You feel like if people don't see you doing it, then they won't believe you. Do you see how seeking validation causes you to have to perform? Do you see how seeking validation puts pressure on you to show up? But your identity, though, your true identity, that's where your foundation is. It's stable, it's solid, it's built in the dark and the quiet. And here's the good part, it's also permanent. I want you to think about it like this: a tree doesn't grow no matter how much you stare at it, no matter how much you clap for it, or no matter how much you post about it. A tree only grows because of how deep its roots are, because its roots are deep. But in order for those roots to get deep, there's work that has to be done in the dark. There's work that has to be done underground in the places where you can't see it. And see, the thing is, a lot of you want to have that spotlight growth without doing the root work. A lot of people don't want to accept the fact that there's things that must be done in the dark. There's things that must be done behind the scenes in order for what we see to really be appreciated, for there to really be any type of growth for real. And the reason why you aren't seeing the results that you would like for it to be, the reason why you aren't seeing the results from your business or from your work is because you want people to acknowledge you. You want people to validate that you are who you say you are without actually putting in the work to become the person who you need to become. I need you to understand, and I want you to understand that God didn't create you to move like somebody who needs validation or needs confirmation every 5 minutes. God created you to move like someone who already knows that they were chosen. Your identity, which is who you were created to be, comes before impact. And affirmation comes before your assignment. Now, before we move on, I want to just do a little word study because, like I've told you in a previous video, I like looking up the definition of words so we actually know what we're talking about instead of just blindly trying to sound smart. So, an affirmation is a positive statement or assertion of truth, often used as a tool for self empowerment and positive thinking. So, that means that what you say and what you believe about yourself are the only things that matter in order for you to fulfill the assignment that you were created for. I'm going to say that one more time. What you say and what you believe about yourself are the only things that matter in order for you to fulfill this assignment that you were created for. Now, I want to give you a little scripture just so you can understand what I mean by this. See, before Jesus ever preached a sermon, performed a single miracle, built a following, or even just produced results, God spoke over him. The Bible tells us in Matthew 3:17, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. See, the beauty in that is that before Jesus did anything, God was pleased with him. Jesus lived 30 years of his life before ever starting his ministry, living from his identity. Jesus didn't work for validation. He worked from it. He didn't need validation because he was already validated by the creator himself. But you, on the other hand, you've been doing flips for people who don't even know what they want for themselves. You've been changing your tone, you've been changing your message, you've been changing your pace, you've been changing your creativity, all to keep strangers impressed. And here's the thing, they don't even know you. You've been worrying more about how something looks than about what something is. And that is why you keep feeling the pressure. That is why you keep feeling the burnout. That is why you keep feeling the anxiety of, am I doing enough? That's why you keep feeling the silent frustration that your value seems to rise and fall, or it seems to fluctuate based on how loud people clap for you. But listen, because I need you to understand this, validation is always going to be a moving target. I'm going to say that one more time. Validation is always going to be a moving target. But your identity is always going to be fixed in truth. Your identity is always going to be fixed in truth. You have to understand that you will never live boldly if your confidence is attached to sand. Now, what do you mean by sand? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me just say it in a different way. You will never live boldly if your confidence is attached to unstable things. Even the Bible paints this picture for us. A house that's been built on sand will collapse when the weather changes. A house that is built on sand will collapse when the weather changes. When the wind blows, when the earth shakes, when the water crashes up against the house will fall because it's built on sand. And then you have the house that is built on stone or the rock. The house that is built on stone or the rock will stand no matter the weather, as well as no matter who walks by the house and ignores it. And see, that's the part that I really want to stick, is that if your confidence is built based on applause, any shift in people's opinions will tear it down, will destroy it. And I want you to take a moment and be honest with yourself and really just think about the fact that at some point you tied your worth to your work. At some point you tied your worth to your following, or maybe it was to your performance, or maybe it was tied to your outcomes, or maybe it was tied to your income, or maybe it was just tied to your ability to impress others. But if you allow me to be the bearer of bad news for just a little bit longer, your identity had nothing to do with any of that. See, identity is who God says that you are before you ever have to lift a finger. Before you were ever even in your mother's womb, God knew you. But validation is who people think you are. And the thing is, it's based on who people think you are until their minds change, until they change their mind. And here's the thing about people, their minds change fast and often. One week they love you, the next week they're distracted. The one minute y'all are cool, and then the next minute they're crucifying you in the comment section. One minute they're praising you, and the next minute they can't stand you. One month your content is blowing up, is going viral and doing all the things, and then the next minute the algorithm is hiding your content like you offended it personally. And the danger that comes with validation is that if you don't detach yourself from this cycle, then you'll end up performing your whole life. You'll end up always having to put on as this face for other people, and you'll never feel secure. You'll never feel satisfied. You'll still never feel fulfilled. You'll still never feel whole. And so you're probably asking yourself right now, okay, Morgan, I get it. Winfrey, I get it that we're not supposed to be chasing validation. But what does pursuing or operating from my identity actually look like? We're about to go into 2026. So, like, if I'm trying to stay consistent, if I'm trying to show up the way I want to show up, then what do I need to be doing? And I'm glad you asked, because first, let me give you what operating in your identity looks like. Operating in your identity looks like showing up even when the room is empty. That means when you don't, when your videos don't get the views, when your posts don't get the views, when your posts don't get the likes that you would like for them to have, keep showing up. It looks like posting the truth even when it's not trending. So, what I mean by posting the truth is, especially if you're a faith driven creator or entrepreneur or business owner, if you are wanting to post the truth, if you are wanting to post about the Bible, if you want to post about scriptures, if you want to talk about Jesus, even if it's not trending, or even posting the things that might not get the most likes, the most views, do it anyways. Operating from your identity looks like creating work that matters and not work that panders. Don't just create work that you think people will like. Don't just create posts or create videos that you think people will gravitate towards. Because the moment that content doesn't perform, because you thought that I thought that this is what people would like. As soon as you think that and attach it to that content, attach it to that video, attach it to whatever it is that you're doing, as soon as you attach it to that, then the moment that it doesn't perform the way that you thought it would, then your confidence takes a hit. Operating from your identity looks like being obedient even when nobody's watching. So even if you don't post about it, even if you don't get any views, or even if you don't get any people to tune into your live, or even if you don't get people to watch your video, or even if you don't get somebody to show up in the gym with you, or show up when you're getting your reps in or whatever, even if you don't have people there to see you doing it, it's still doing it anyway. It's still being obedient to what God told you to do. It's still being obedient to what his word says to do. It still means following through on what you say you're going to do, even if nobody else is around to see that you did it. Character is built in the dark. Character is built when nobody's watching. And a lot of times we tend to put that aside because we want to be accepted so bad that we end up actually putting our standards to the side, or putting our values to the side, because we want people to accept us. We want fans. We want that audience, like I mentioned earlier on in this video. It looks like living anchored instead of living anxious. And here's the part that I really want to hit home. When you chase validation, you'll always feel behind. But when you operate from your identity, you'll always feel aligned. You'll always feel like you're doing exactly what you were created to be doing. You'll always move like you're supposed to be moving. It will feel natural. It will come easy. It will seem like this is something that I should have been doing this whole time. And a lot of us don't realize that we need that. We need to experience the gap almost of what it's like to be chasing validation. We almost kind of need to have gone through that period of trying to please people, because that's basically all it is you're basically just looking to please people instead of pleasing God. And I don't want you to get it twisted, is that pleasing God does not mean you shun people. It does not mean you ignore people. You still have to keep people into you still have to take people into consideration. You still have to think about what other people care about. You still have to serve people. Your whole purpose in life is to please God and serve people. But in order for you to serve people, you have to put God first. You have to put God at the center of it. And so if you don't, and this kind of reminds me of what the book of Ecclesiastes says when it talks about how living life for life under the sun is like chasing after the wind. And at the end of it all, it's meaningless, especially if you don't have God at the center, because everything that you do today will eventually be forgotten. Everything that you did, all the accomplishments that you did, all the money that you made, all the houses that you got, all the people that you know, all of those things will eventually fade away and won't be remembered by the people who come after us. So if you are living your life for life under the sun, if you're living your life for just this life alone, for just the worldly things, if you keep living your life for those things, then it's going to easily feel like there's this void in yourself. You're going to keep having to chase something. You're going to keep having to chase validation. But if you don't realize that God has already validated you, God already has acknowledged you, God already knows you, you're already known, you're already appreciated, you're already loved by the Creator Himself. When you realize that part, then everything else that you do is just like an add on. Validation causes you to imitate. It causes you to try to blend in. You just do you just do what you can do in order to be accepted by the crowd. You end up being a part of the mediocre many instead of the exceptional few. Instead of the fabulous few, instead of the fascinating few, however you want to say it. Because identity is what makes you original. Your identity is literally you are one of one, almost one of zero, because there's nobody else like you on this earth. There's nobody else that was created with the same things that you have. There's nobody on this earth that knows what you know the way that you know them. And by and that doesn't by any means mean that you have to discount what other people say, because there's always room to grow and there's always room to improve. But if you look at it as far as if you look at it from a place of I always have room to become a better version of myself, then well, this version of me sucks. Let me go and try to be like somebody else. Those are two completely different ways to view your life. There's always room for improvement. There's always things that you can do to better yourself. But there's never going to be another you. There's never going to be another them. Everybody is a one of one. You're a one of one creation that was created for a purpose, that was created with an assignment. And the more you try to downplay or downgrade your purpose and your ability and your calling and your identity for somebody else's, you'll always feel like you're a step behind. You'll always feel like you have to rush. And instead of embracing the fact that living in your identity is a slow build, but it's also an intentional one if you let it, if you put the intention behind to actually grow into a better version of yourself. Seeking validation drains you, but living from your identity develops you. It builds you. Living from your identity molds you. Living from your identity defines you. And I'm trying to push this home is that identity grows you into somebody who doesn't need external approval in order to stay faithful, in order to stay consistent, in order to stay committed, in order to stay disciplined, in order to stay real. And so I don't want to just preach at you this whole time, because I really want you to be able to actually start living from your identity instead of just hearing all of this stuff. So here are just a few, just four tactics to keep in mind that you can actually start implementing today. So number one is to start by checking your motives, your heart posture, and your why before you do anything. So this looks like asking yourself, am I doing this because this is true to who I am, or am I doing this because I want to be noticed? And if the answer stings, that's good, because that means you're either waking up or that means that you're becoming aware. Both of those things are a good thing. The second thing that I want you to do is to practice doing things privately without posting about them. This means reading without screenshotting it. We don't need to see what you're reading. Praying without announcing it. The Bible even talks about don't do as the Pharisees do, praying out loud in public for the applause of people. Don't do things for the validation or for the applause of other people. Do it in private. Growing without documenting it. If you accomplish something, you don't always have to document it. You can do it for your personal reasons, but try just growing and just living in that, relishing in that, actually savoring that instead of, okay, let me write this down so I don't forget it. Because then it kind of takes away from the purpose. And then work without it being a performance. It doesn't matter who's around. Do it because that's true to who you are. Do it because you're working for skills. Don't even just work for money. I don't think that anybody should really ever just work for money. Money is not really the best thing to work for, because money is, one, a depreciating asset that we can always get more of, but then two, there's better things to work for than money. You can work for skills, you can work for relationships, you can work for, ideas. You can work for a bunch of other things other than money. So work without it being a performance. Because here's the thing, privacy strengthens your identity, but performance weakens it. Remember, everybody doesn't need to know what you have going on. Everybody doesn't need to see you. The third thing that I want you to do is to revisit who God says you are, not who the internet thinks you are. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5 reminds us that we were known, formed, appointed, and given a purpose before anyone ever had a chance to approve us. So remember that your purpose wasn't crowdsourced, it was God sourced. And then the last thing that I really want you to think about and really let this sink in is to give yourself permission to disappoint people if it means obeying God. I'm going to say that one more time. Give yourself permission to disappoint people if it means obeying God. You can't chase applause and assignment. The Bible tells us that we cannot serve two masters. And yes, I know the Bible is talking about you cannot serve God and money. You will love one and hate the other, but it also applies to everything else. One will always contradict the other. You cannot chase applause. You cannot chase the love of man and the love of God at the same time. One will always contradict the other. So when you catch yourself spiraling because the numbers didn't number, breathe. When you feel insecure because someone else is moving faster than you, someone else is achieving things better, faster than you are, breathe. When you feel your confidence trying to latch on to human praise instead of God's truth, breathe. Because I want you to remember that that the identity that God gave you is the antidote. It's the anchor. It's the thing that keeps you steady when everything else gets loud. And if you really allow this to sit with you, it'll hit you. It'll hit you that you were never meant to be validated into purpose. You were meant to walk in purpose, on purpose, because you were already validated. The moment you start operating from your identity, instead of chasing validation, that's the moment when you'll start seeing your work get deeper. Your work will start having more purpose behind it. You'll start having a clearer voice. Your voice gets clearer. And your confidence will actually stop shaking every time a human's opinion changes. Because remember that everything that you're praying to grow or will start growing when you stop shrinking. And the identity that God gave you is the version of you that doesn't need permission to show up. So if you want to be consistent in 2026, live from your identity. Live based off of who God says you are, not who people think you are. Because people starts with change. People will always have something new that they want to say about you or something new that they'll think. And a lot of times people don't really care. They only care enough to use you. In a sense, people only care about themselves. But when you understand, and if you really want to be more impactful, if you really want to be more consistent, and if you really want to just be obedient to what I said earlier about pleasing God and serving people, when you understand that being a servant means understanding who you are based on whose you are, and then understanding too that what you've been given, what you've been granted as far as your calling, as far as your gifts were given to you in order for you to serve people. They were given to you in order for you to be able to draw people unto God so that none of us will go to hell. Because he didn't create man to go to hell. He created hell for the devil and his demons. And while in a sense you don't have the ability to actually save people, you do have the ability to show up like yourself and truly live the way that God intended you to live. He told us to be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, and subdue all and subdue it. And so you have to realize and understand that in order for you to have more, you have to do more. But in order for you to do more, you have to become more. And in order for you to become more, you have to realize who you've been becoming this whole time. And hopefully, you're not becoming a fake. You're becoming more and more of the person who you were truly meant to be. So hopefully this video bless you. Hopefully you realize some of the things that you've been doing that cause you to act like somebody else or pretend to be somebody that you're not. And you have made the decision or you're making this decision now to not do that anymore, to stop pretending, to stop acting, to stop seeking validation from other people. Stop seeking validation and be you. So hopefully this video bless you, and we'll talk to you on the next video.